if we would adopt that attitude, right, that like what you said, I'm going to live my life to the fullest right now, and when I'm done, it's going to be even better, right? I try to do that. It is hard. It's hard in this human experience. We get attached to things. We feel responsibility for things in our life, for other people, all that type of stuff. And at the same time to know that when we are finished with this physical body, we continue, no matter how hard this life may have been for you, the other side is just pure joy.
I'm here today with Peter Bedard. After a near death experience, Peter was faced with the greatest challenge of all, living a life in severe physical, emotional, and spiritual pain. The former dancer soon discovered that the anger and frustration he felt because of his injuries were not only keeping him in pain, but were waiting to teach him the greatest gifts of his life. Now a celebrated author and healer, Peter helps thousands of people globally to live a life full of potential while integrating the lessons of pain into balanced living. Oh my gosh, Peter, thank you so much for being my guest. It's such a great honor to be here with you, and I really appreciate you coming on.
I'm happy to be here. It's important to share the message that people can heal and that people are loved on this side and on the other side.
Yes, and you have so much to share. But let's start with your near-death experience, and go from there. Tell me about what happened.
So I was a young man, and had been discovered as a dancer. There's different body types for different sports. Like there's a football player body type and a basketball player body type, and I have a dancer's body type. So I was long and lean and flexible. I could jump really high, and I could run really fast. And I was in musical theater as a kid, and I was discovered as a dancer and given scholarships. So that's where I was at the time of my accident. So I was coming home from a performance and somebody came up behind me. I was on my bike. They pushed the back of my bike. I jumped out of my body. I watched my bike and my body hit the truck. There was a parked semi truck on the side of the road. Uh, I I saw them drive away, and in I died, and I went to the other side. I jokingly say, I'm a speaker, an author, a therapist, and I jokingly say sometimes when I start my talks, and yet I'm very serious, that death was the best thing that ever happened to me. Right? The experience of dying and being on the other side. I'm sure you've had this with other guests on your show, and the experience is far beyond anything we could ever truly understand, right? The joy, the bliss, the beauty, the love, the deep feeling of acceptance and purpose and feeling like you're home, that love is that experience is so hard to describe with our human words, right? It goes so far beyond, take the understanding that you may have of the word bliss, which many people have never experienced. Take that understanding of the word bliss and multiply it by 20 trillion, and you may come a little close to the understanding of the beauty and the love that's on the other side. It's amazing.
That's very comforting to hear that we don't have to worry about death, that it's a wonderful experience. Not that we should take our life lightly, and we should live our life to the best, but nothing to fear when our time comes.
No, death is something to be look forward to. It is, if we would adopt that attitude, right? That like what you said, I'm going to live my life to the fullest right now, and when I'm done, it's going to be even better, right? I try to do that. It is hard. It's hard in this human experience. We get attached to things. We feel responsibility for things in our life, for other people, all that type of stuff. And at the same time to know that when we are finished with this physical body, we continue, no matter how hard this life may have been for you, the other side is just pure joy. it is just an amazing experience. So to put that mindset in that place, right? To put that mindset that whatever I'm feeling right now, whatever tragedy or trauma or abuse or whatever it is that I have gone through or am going through, to know that this too shall pass is real, to know that experience, to know it's real in the physical form as a therapist. Like these are people are afraid they get stuck in a particular emotion and they're afraid that emotion's never going to end. Or they're afraid of even feeling that emotion because their grief is so deep that they feel like it's never going to end. And that's not true. There's no potential way for that to happen. It may be very deep and you may feel it very deeply. And there is always an end to that grief. And to know that on the other side of that grief is pure joy. It's just, it changes the way you look at life and it changes the way you make decisions or what you decide to do with your life.
What happened during your near death experience?
Sure. So I was driving home from a performance. My grandfather was loosely associated with the world of vaudeville when he was young, and he played the banjo. And he was a factory worker, but when they needed a banjo player for a show or something was going on, he would like to fill in all the way up into his, his days when I knew him as an old man. He loved to play the banjo. And I had this romantic idea about vaudeville and, variety acts and performance and comedians and magicians and burlesque and all that type of stuff. This idea of vaudeville. And as a kid, I was in the theater and there was a little vaudeville company, a vaudeville, literally a building that had been turned into a vaudeville theater where they had the red hot mamas and you threw popcorn and you booed and you hissed. And I thought that was so amazing. I wanted to do that. And so I auditioned to be part of this vaudeville show. And I was cast. I was the youngest member to be cast. I could not be in the theater space because I was under 18. And at that time, the drinking age was 18 when I was a kid. And so I could be on the stage and perform. And it just felt like I had gotten my first big paying gig. I wanted to be a performer at that time. And to be in a vaudeville show was just great. I get to say I played a horse's ass. It's literally in the costume. And it was amazing. And they had opening night weekend. There was, of course, a show a party that night, and my parents said I couldn't go, and I was very angry about that because I was the good boy. I always did what I was told to do. I always honored my parents, and I was very angry that they told me they didn't. I was almost 18, and they told me I couldn't do something like that. So I was driving home through a little suburban area, and I was on my moped. It was probably about 10:30 at night in October. It was a beautiful night, and there was a curve in the road, and the semi truck was parked at that curve, and I was approaching it when a car came behind me, and I couldn't get around the truck, and the car pushed my back tire, and I flew into my body, and the bike flew into the back of the truck. And in that moment, I died. I watched my whole experience. As I said earlier, I watched the car drive away. I was very aware that my body was mangled. I could look down at my body and I didn't have a real connection with it. There was just this appreciation for this beautiful night and a curiosity of why that person would have driven away and why they hit me. I don't know, but I wasn't connected to anything as far as judgment or fear or anything like that. I was out of my body. I wasn't on the other side. And I was just very curious. I remember having a big appreciation for the October moon, and it was one of those like end of summer nights where you had that hot summer that was going into that cool night, and it was just beautiful. And then I had the experience of jumping over to the other side. I went through a tunnel. I had the tunnel experience. Not everybody does. I had the tunnel experience. My tunnel was a sort of a white glowing tunnel and it spun. So I was shooting down the tunnel as it turned. It sort of corkscrewed. So it was moving. It wasn't just a stagnant roll. It was turning and twisting and moving through, which was very, very interesting because later in life I got to see an actual image of how the universe, how our universe actually works, you know, the sun and the planets. And I always had this idea, how they taught it was stagnant. The sun was in the middle and the planet just moved around it, and it was just that. But that's not the case. The sun is actually shooting through the universe, shooting through the cosmos. And as it's shooting through, the planets are following it like this. It's corkscrewing forward. It's a forward movement type of thing. And so the planets are sort of circling the sun as they're corkscrewing through space and time. And that was what it was like for me going down that tunnel. And so when I learned that years later, I was like, oh my God, that was like, I not only was that a physical experience in my body and my consciousness, but it was what the universe does in itself, our solar system at least. And so I went to the other side, and on the other side, there was nobody there. I was in this space that it was beautiful. It was just full of light. And it was kind of like walking in a prism, like being in a prism. I don't know if you've ever had a crystal and the sunlight hits it and you get that refraction of all the color, right? You get that rainbow of color. So it was like walking in that. It was this clear, translucent, and yet white kind of experience, but there was color all over the place. And that's why I say it's kind of like walking in a prism, if you could imagine that like just a triangle, you know, a stone, a quartz or something like that, that's reflecting or refracting light. It was beautiful being in there, and being on that side, I felt so loved and so accepted. My life as a kid, in when I was 17, was I said, you had read in my bio that I was a dancer, and being a dancer at that time was the only place that I really felt safe, right? I, as a teenager and hormones and all that type of stuff, I was discovering my sexuality. My dad was, I was Billy Elliot in a way. If you know that movie from back in the day, where there's a little boy and his dad is a tough street fighter, and Billy Elliot just wants to be a dancer. Well, that was me. My dad was a Marine, yeah, a former Marine, and he was an umpire and very into sports and all that type of stuff. And he was Catholic, and my mom was Episcopalian. And here I was, I just wanted to be a dancer, and I didn't fit in. I didn't, it's not that my family didn't love me, but I just didn't know how to be. As I was discovering my sexuality, I was discovering that I was gay. And so I didn't fit in that way. I had older siblings and they weren't like me. And so there was just this place where in most of the world outside of the dance studio, I didn't feel safe. And being on the other side felt like home. It felt like the most beautiful place of pure love and acceptance just to be. A friend of mine had a near death experience, or actually, this isn't her story specifically, it's her story about her father. So she had an experience where her dad was, he had dementia, I think it was, and he was in a hospital, and he was a former Baptist preacher. And Baptists are pretty fire and brimstone, right? There's one way to live. You don't live that way, you're not going to heaven. And he was near his death, and he was lying in bed. He had sundowners experience. And I love sharing the story because it's a story of knowing that we are absolutely loved. And he was lying in bed, finally just, you know, getting ready to sleep, and he shot up in bed and he was seeing something. And my friend was in the room and she's like, "What are you looking at, Daddy? What's going on?" And he says, "I see them, I see them." And she says, "What do you see, Daddy?" He says, "I see my mama." And his mama had passed over many years ago. And she said, "Yeah, I see my mama, and she's so beautiful and she's so happy, and she's on the land on the other side of the river," which is Baptist speak for heaven, right? And then his face drained its color and he just went fully pale. And my friend said, "What's going on, Daddy?" And he says, "My daddy's here." And his daddy wasn't supposed to go to heaven according to his beliefs. His daddy, I guess he gambled, and he was a bit of a womanizer, and he drank, and all those things according to Baptist faith says you're not going to heaven. And he said, "After all these years, I got it wrong. You can't get this wrong. Everybody is welcome." And that's exactly what I felt like. You know, this is a Baptist preacher near the end of his life, having this sort of experience before he passes of what the world, of what heaven looks like, saying you can't get this wrong. And here I am on the other side, having his very same experience. You are everybody, all of us are so loved. There is no lack of love on the other side. Whatever you perceive as a lack of love is not true. It's a separation. And when we start to love more, we remember and we fall into alignment with that truth. And so there I am on the other side, feeling that love, blissed out, being really curious where everybody is, because I have this consciousness that my where's my dead dog and my great grandmother and my ancestors, they're supposed to greet me on the other side. In my mind, that's what I thought what was supposed to happen. You know, the pearly gates or whatever. Somebody was supposed to say hi, and there was no one there. And there was no bad feeling about it, just complete curiosity. And in this space, I was aware that I was standing and I was aware that I had my body. It was just different, but it was still my body. And it was healed, it was healthy, and it was strong. It wasn't like that body I had left that was broken. And again, the curiosity. Wow, how could that be? Where am I? Where is everybody? I'm aware there's a floor, or at least the energy of I'm standing on something. I don't feel like I'm free falling, but I can't really see a floor. It's just that prism energy, just that light. I'm aware I'm in a space, but the space feels like it goes on forever. Like it feels absolutely eternal. And yet it doesn't feel overwhelming and like I'm just floating out in the middle of nowhere. It feels like I'm actually held in this beautiful room. Yet there's the consciousness that it's not, there is no floor, yet I'm standing on it. It's interesting contradictions of this energy and that curiosity. Where is everybody? And I'm just wandering around. I have no idea how long it was, but it felt like a significant amount of time. And then finally I turned around and there was a man there. And the way I describe him is as like a holograph. I'm sure most of your listeners have seen some sort of like movie, Star Wars or something like that, where Obi-Wan Kenobi is being projected in a hologram, or Princess Leia is saying, "Come save us," or whatever it is. And you can see that it's a body, and you can see that there's an outfit or clothing, and you can see like Princess Leia's buns or whatever it is on the top of her head. You can make all that out, and yet there's a translucence to them. And so this man was like that. He appears to me, I can very definitely see his clothing. And I have no idea. I'm still curious about this little mystery where he has a tweed suit on, and it's a really heavy, thick tweed. And why I'm a 17-year-old noticing that this guy is wearing a tweed suit, I have no idea. And like a hat on. And I think to myself, the thought I get to myself is Hong Kong 1860. I have no idea what that's about. To this day, I have no idea what that means. And the man in front of me, when I turn to see him, I feel like my chest just explodes, like my ribs are cracked open in this painful ecstasy. Like my heart is just coming out of my body towards him. And at the same time, my consciousness is thinking, who the heck is this? Who is this person? Who is this man? He looks like the idea that I have of like Fu Manchu or Lao Tzu. I'm obviously Caucasian, and the presence of the divine is like a wise old man, a Chinese old man. And there's this curiosity, like, oh, is that God? Like, what is this? What is happening here? And literally my heart, when I see this person, there's this incredible amount of love for this person. No idea who he is, no idea how to identify him, no idea why this person's energy showed up in that particular form of a older wise Chinese man in a tweed suit. No idea. But I see him, and there's that absolute love that is going towards him. Like it literally, it feels like it's an explosion moving from me to him. And the curiosity, and I'm thinking, who are you? And he says to me, "You're not supposed to be here." And I thought, well, I was a bit of a sarcastic kid. I still kind of am. I was like, well, I'm here, deal with it. I'm not going back. Those were my thoughts. Like, you're not supposed to be here. And it's kind of how I understand and look at accidents now. There's a lot of people, and I have a very strong spiritual practice, and there's a lot of different faiths that say that nothing is an accident. And I beg to differ. I think that there is room for accidents. I think, yes, I believe that ultimately we're all going to this beautiful place. Ultimately, every living soul is going to this experience of love, just what I did, right? Every soul is coming into that experience. How we get there, though, there's free will. We could choose to delay, we could choose to postpone, we could choose to bump into each other, we could choose to be human and have all these experiences. And, yeah, we're all going in the same direction, but sometimes accidents happen. It's kind of like all the cars on the freeway. We're all going in the same direction. But sometimes we bump into each other and there's an accident. Was it meant to be? I don't think so. Not in my consciousness. We're still all going to get to that same place anyway. But accidents, I think, are real. Your consciousness and my consciousness are bouncing around in the physical world, and we bump into each other. And so I'm on the other side, and this person's telling me I'm not supposed to be there. And I really have that response of, well, I'm here, deal with it. And there wasn't that there was judgment or anything, but he told me I had to leave. Now, when I was told that, I felt that human experience come back to me, that anger of being on my bike and driving home and being mad at my parents and not being able to go to the cast party after the show, all that type of stuff came back. And in that moment, my anger is what hooked me back. And I said, I basically told this person, I flipped him off. I did that. And and in that moment, I was back over on the human side. I was, I was no longer in that place of bliss and joy. I was no longer there. And for a long time, I felt like I had gotten kicked out of heaven. Like I felt unworthy. I felt like I was being punished, right? And a lot of people, because I'm a gay man or because whatever reason. And it took me a while to come to what I feel is the truth. And that was, it just wasn't my time. Accident had happened and I needed to come back and do other things. I needed to live the rest of this life. And I'm so grateful that for that experience. Somebody killed me. It wasn't just that I intentionally pushed my bike into the back of a parked semi truck. I was murdered. Come to that experience and accept that and learn how to forgive that. And then become a therapist and become an author and become a speaker and write my books and bring this healing work into the world. I feel that this is why I had to come back. And without that, I didn't know, but without that experience, I'm not sure if I would be even sitting here with you. So there's a gratitude for my death experience.
And one of the reasons why I was so attracted to your story was the message that everyone is welcome in heaven. And so God is not judgmental. Do you believe in hell?
I don't personally. I believe that we as humans can create hell. There was a great TV show on a few years back called Lucifer, right? And he was the devil, and Lucifer's job was to actually just give people a place for them to play out their misery. And I really like that idea that we do it to ourselves. There's nothing like hell. And the absolute love of the universe, the being, the creative source, the oneness, the goddess, whatever you want to call it, that's not that energy. That's not what they've created. We've created hell. We've created hell on earth. We've created misery. We've created separation. I like to think of evil as it's nothing to do with the divine. The evil has nothing to do with the divine in my mind. Evil is when we separate ourselves from the divine. So we think we're unworthy. We think we are less than. We think we are something to be punished or to be ashamed. We think those things, and that moving away from our divine alignment, that moving away is what creates evil, right? Hitler in himself moved away, as I look at it. As a man, he felt rejected, he felt unloved, he felt unappreciated. He wanted to be an artist. Nobody respected him for his art. Apparently he wasn't that good. and and that hurt and that pain and that suffering moved him away from the divine. And because he was so far away from that experience of recognizing love, he did evil things. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
We do that. We do that. That's on us. And we have free will to do that, right? I'm going in the same direction everybody else. I'm driving that car. Eventually I'm going to find that love. I'm going to be on that other side. Eventually I'm going to do it. But my hurt, my pain, my separation from knowing my truth that we are whole, perfect, and complete, my separation from that is when then I do horrible things to other people.
And you came back with gifts. Well, one, you have a gift of healing. You're a therapist and you like to work with people to help them heal their lives. Did you come back with any like intuitive gifts, like clairvoyance or anything like that?
I did it. I'm not a psychic. I'm highly intuitive. I feel people. I'm very much an empath, that type of thing. And I've had to grow into that ability to be an empath and to go from what I call a mature empath to from an immature empath to a mature empath. What we have to do is we have to evolve to the point where we can be present and still feel pain and other people's pain very deeply. And the mature part is when we're present with it and we no longer take it on as our own. The immature empath, and that's part of what I learned in this process. The immature empath is like a sponge, just sucking it all up, and often doesn't have a way to release any of it. And they make themselves sick. They make themselves angry. They make themselves have a lot of resentment in their life. Isolate and push people away. Part of my learning was how to be that empath, how to be deeply passionate and compassionate without taking it on for myself, without internalizing it, without getting slimed by other people's emotions. But I didn't come back with my friend did. My friend whose story that is, she had a lot of these experiences before. She was already a very psychic human being. And then sort of her near-death experience was kind of a wake-up call that, hey, you have to stop ignoring these abilities and you need to use them consciously now for the benefit of the world, not in a way that is just for yourself. Yeah.
How did your experience change the way that you lived your life?
Well, in the beginning, it didn't. It was a process for me. In that accident, I shattered my left knee into little tiny bits. It was a very unusual accident because the injury was from the back of the knee. My kneecap itself was fully intact, but the bones going into the joint were shattered. So these were all kinds of little pieces of bone with a ligament muscle attached to it. And they did this amazing surgery. The doctors were incredible. They had 14 surgeons from the NFL come in and, put my knee back together. And I am so grateful for that. I was told I'd probably never be able to walk again, but the surgery was a success, and that was phenomenal. It was absolutely phenomenal to have Western medicine do this at the time experimental surgery, and I'm so grateful for that. Now, after that, the doctors had no idea what to do with me, right? I also cracked 5 vertebrae. I split my right wrist open. I lost all the nerves in my right hand. I had undiagnosed brain damage. I mean, I survived because I had a helmet on. Had I not had a helmet on, I would not have lived, most likely, or I would have had severe, severe brain damage. I did have brain damage, though, and nobody even thought to test me for it. Like nobody even asked. I used to substitute words. I used to have like it was a very interesting experience. So I had to heal all this stuff. And so I had to learn how to walk again. I had fibromyalgia and arthritis and asthma and bronchitis and sciatica. I had my white blood cells at one point during my recovery period, which was over decades. My white blood cells were attacking my red blood cells. My hemoglobin was splitting, shutting down my organs. It was a process of healing and stepping in, learning not to be a victim, learning not to be identified by an experience. So that experience is definitely my history. It's the story of where I've come from, but it's no longer my identity, right? If I was still in the identity of that story, I would still be living as a victim, right? There's no police reports. There's no ambulance report. Never been able to find anything. An ambulance at one point found somebody had to call and found me and got me to the hospital. But there's no reports on any of this. I could go into all kinds of conspiracy theory stuff about who killed me, why they killed me. You know, I the to live in that experience was tempting. And it was a lot of people enabled it, right? Oh gosh, that's so horrible. That's so bad. Wow, you poor thing. I could have excuses for not doing things because I was in so much pain, right? And I could have used all that pain to keep me stuck, right? For whatever reason, maybe it was, the divine intervening and not letting me, but for whatever reason, I couldn't stay in that victim thinking. I couldn't stay in that victim experience. I refused to let the doctor's opinion, I mentioned earlier that they told me I'd never be able to walk again. And if I could, they told me that it would be very difficult and I'd have to have my knee replaced by the time I was 40, right? And that consciousness of them, I had to reject the medical world because after the surgery, they really had nothing to do for me. There was nothing they could really help me with, right? They had more drugs that they could give me, or they had more surgeries that they could give me. And there was always said in a way, well, this might help. Well, maybe this drug could help with your pain, or maybe this surgery could help your body. And I wasn't interested in maybes. So I was in a lot of pain for a good 15, 20 years. And it still affects my life. I just don't accept it anymore. And so I had to look into holistic practices. I had no choice as I saw it. I had to find alternative therapies. And I did. I started filming videos on YouTube about holistic practitioners and what they did. And I was their guinea pig, and they would demonstrate on me what their work was. And again, it was part of my own healing process. And I had to really discover, so that my superpower is really my healing work. And I had to discover that all wounds, no matter where they start, are physical, mental, and spiritual. All wounds have that component, right? So I give the example of one of my football players that comes in to see me now, and he has a broken knee or something like I had. And there's the physical wound of the broken knee. But there's also the mental wound, that way we think about our pain, the way we think about that healing process, right? These football players, when they have these injuries, they're in a panic, the mental anguish. What am I going to do? How am I going to play? Am I going to be able to play? What's going to happen with the season? What's going to happen with my contract? I just bought a $14 million house. How am I going to pay for that house? Yeah, my $250 million contract, that's awesome. But if I can't play, how am I going to how am I going to survive, right? And that mental anguish. And then there's the heart. And on that heart level, they're thinking, what do I do? This is what I love. And I really relate to that because that's how I felt as a dancer, right? What do I do? That was how I understood how to exist in the world. That was my home. That was my safety. And that had been ripped away from me, right? These guys had played ball since they were 8, 9, 10 years old. It's who they are. It's how they know how to be in the world, right? So to recognize that every wound has a physical component, mental component, and a spiritual component, and that we need to heal on all of those assets, all of those sides, right? We have to do the healing work on each of those areas. And most of us are just working in that one area. We're just working on the physical side of the doctors or rehabilitation or physical, taking this drug or doing this surgery or whatever it is. And I don't know about you, Tia, but what hurts more? I'll ask you that question. Does a broken heart hurt more or a broken bone hurt more? What do you think?
A broken heart.
Absolutely. The bone heals pretty quickly. The broken heart may take years, if ever, for some people, right? I had to come to terms with the broken knee wasn't the real problem. The broken heart, not being able to live the life I wanted to live, to be the dancer that I felt I was destined to be, right? Not to have that place of home or safety anymore, to have that taken away. That's where my healing needed to really focus. Yes, I needed to rehab my knee. Yes, I needed to practice keeping it strong. And the doctors were amazing about putting those bones together. Yes, I had to wear certain devices to help me walk at times and stuff like that. And the part that really needed to heal was my heart. And then my head of, well, what am I going to do with my life? I had my whole future planned out, right? I was going to be this and that. I knew where I was going to go. I knew what direction I was going to go into. Suddenly that was gone, right? Who am I now in the world not being able to be who I thought I was, right? And I had to completely change my thinking and then get to that point of actually forgiving, right? Woo! Some of my biggest healing work was done in forgiving the person that killed me, right? I mean, think of the hardest thing maybe you've ever gone through. I doubt somebody ever murdered you, right?
So someone murdered my husband. And
Exactly.
so yes, the forgiveness
I
part,
remember that story.
it's
That's
maybe
that forgiveness.
that's the hardest part of it all, probably, because you don't want to offer that.
Exactly. And remembering that forgiveness does not mean that what was done is okay.
Hmm.
Forgiveness, one of my favorite inspirations for learning to forgive, was a quote that's thousands of years old. We don't even know who wrote it, but it goes something like this. Forgiveness is putting down the poison intended for someone else. And then the quote's often said in the reverse, not forgiving is drinking the poison intended for someone else, right?
That makes a lot of sense. It's
The,
perfectly said. Yes, absolutely.
that
Um,
resentment that you felt for the person who harmed your husband, who harmed your life,
right.
right?
Exactly. Hmm.
That that anger, that resentment eats us up, doesn't it?
Hmm.
It poisons our hearts. It makes it hard to get out of bed. We feel it in our bodies, right? To practice that forgiveness is huge. And if we don't, then life becomes a horrible place to be in.
It becomes much more difficult, that's for sure. Yes. Do you feel like you have this intense, effective healing gift because of your near-death experience? Did that kind of connect you to something?
As I look back, it's that again, back to that whole idea of dense destiny. Was it meant to be? Um, there's a path that I was on in that other life that would have been very different from this life. Very, like, not even similar. Right. And in a way, did you ever see that movie that was out a couple years? It was like a couple years ago called Everything All at Once, something like that.
Yeah, I think so.
Jamie Lee Curtis played the bad person that was jumping through universes to,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yes.
But that idea, my background is I have a master's degree in quantum theory and theology, right? So there's this idea that everything is happening all at the same time, and there are multiple dimensions all happening at the same time. Well, there's in some other place, there's the experience of this human called Peter Bedard, on another level, who's somehow a professional dancer. He's still doing that. The murder didn't happen, and he's doing it, right? And then there's the me in this reality that you and I are sitting here. And the reality of this is that I get the gift of being Peter the healer, Peter the practitioner, Peter the author, Peter the public speaker, Peter the person that sits with people and shows them how to love their pain, right? I don't know if I'd want the dancer experience. Is it happening? According to science, potentially it's happening right now at the same time in this very moment, right? Would I choose one or the other? I don't know. They both sound fun.
Yeah, I get that. You think, what would have happened to me if this certain experience didn't happen? And then it was everything that you wanted, and you suffered greatly from your experience, but you're also in a place that you wouldn't have been had it not happened.
And that's the gift. Part of the healing, like what you've had to go through or are going through around your husband, part of it is looking for the gift. Like if your husband, if you wouldn't have had that experience with your husband, would you be here doing this show?
Absolutely
Right?
not. Yeah, right.
Exactly. And I like to refer to that as the gold in the garbage, right? There's the garbage of what you went through and the loss and the grief and all that kind of stuff. And there's the gold that we are here in this moment right now connecting. And there's someone needs to hear what we're saying, whatever that is, right? To consciously hold that.
Absolutely. And that's why sharing your story is so important to help others. It's all about being in service to others. We're all in this together. I know that's a little bit of a cliche saying nowadays, but it's so true. We're all trying to get through this life. We're all struggling. So it means a lot to me that you're on here with me right now and sharing all this that happened to you. And I want to talk a little bit about your background. Were you raised in a religious background or not really?
So I my mom's Episcopalian. And when she married my dad, she had to agree to raise the children as Catholic because my dad's Catholic. And so there was this very conscious effort on my mom to make sure that we went to church and did that type of stuff. Because in Catholicism, if you didn't go to church, you weren't going to go to heaven. Now that's changed. That changed several decades ago. But there was this idea when my mom was young and pregnant that if you were Catholic and you didn't go to church, you were going to go to hell, right? If you didn't have confession, if you didn't receive the sacraments and stuff. So my mom was very much dedicated to making sure that we were raised in the Catholic Church. I had to go to catechism, I had to do the sacraments. I hated every second of it. I rebelled against it. It didn't feel right. I didn't agree with it. Like I said, my dad is very Catholic. He doesn't question things. He just does. My dad looks at at priest or I not so much anymore in his older age, but I think my dad just was like, this is what they tell you to do, just sit down and do it. Right. And so there's always been kind of a conflict with my family because I just I didn't understand that whole thing. And my mom, being Episcopalian, she didn't have to follow the same rules. So there was always this kind of, well, wait, like you don't do it. Why do I have to do it? That type of thing. And Christianity in general, although I was raised in not it was certainly wasn't conservative. It was more open, but it was still very Christian. So even though I was raised in that Christian mindset, very Catholic mindset, the whole idea of Jesus and stuff like that didn't make a lot of sense to me. I have found again, I went to school, I studied theology and I studied different religions. And now I look at religion as being something, the divine coming through a particular culture. The divine, I absolutely believe in the divine. I believe in God. I believe in the oneness. I believe in the love. I believe we are all connected. I don't believe in a fat white guy up in the sky. I don't believe in punishment. I don't believe in hell. I believe God is pure love. So there is no chosen like tribe of people. God loves everybody absolutely unconditionally. That's again my beliefs. I respect other people's beliefs. Being on the other side, having this Chinese man greet me, like they're the God is, and the other side, and spirituality is a very personal thing. And I believe it should stay a personal thing. I believe it's between you and your higher power. And I look at every day doing my best to be a expression of the divine. I like to think that we all come from source, every single one of us. And I think of the source energy, source God, universe. I think of it like the ocean in my mind, how my mind can grapple such a massive concept as in God. I think of God as being the ocean, and I am an emanation, right? So we all have been said, every tradition, every spiritual tradition has said that we are made in the image of the divine, right? And so I am a wave on that ocean. You are a wave on that ocean. You are an expression of the divine rising up as that wave. And when we leave these bodies, we are absorbed back into God itself, back into the ocean. That's how I think. And the qualities of the ocean are my qualities, are your qualities. The qualities of the divine are bliss, our love, our joy, our beauty, our the qualities of the ocean are absolutely abundant, right? Prosperity, all of that type of stuff. That's the quality of the divine. And we forget that. Our humanness, our lack, our fear, our judgment gets in the way. And so I like to think that we are the as God is. Now, God is the massive ocean. We're just a wave. But we are one. And one of my favorite sayings is God is, I am, we are one. As God is pure love. Instead of using the word God, I could even say love,
Mm.
right? They're equivalents, right?
I like
So,
when Wayne Dyer, I was watching a Wayne Dyer speech one time, and he was talking about how, when asked what his name was, God said, I am that I am. And that's in the Bible, and really resonates, makes a lot of sense. So it sounds like you discovered that in an actual experience. So that's amazing that you, to me, the feeling of oneness, I can't quite get there. I can understand the conception of it and think about it, but I can't bring it to me. Are you still able to go to that place where you feel these blissful feelings?
um, every now and then. So for a long time, and this is something I found to be, I've heard or experienced with other people who have near-death experiences under the age of 21, let's say. It's very common for us to want to go back. It's like being in the candy shop and wanting to go back and get more candy. So it wasn't that I wanted to kill myself necessarily, but it was that there was just I did things and I had quite a few experiences afterward where I could have checked out, I could have crossed over, I could have died again. And there's something that kept keeping me here, right? That experience of joy, I think, is our life purpose. That experience of alignment, remembering and not making it so complicated. It's so easy just to understand, oh, I am the ocean, the qualities of who I am. Even Isaac Asimov said that you are made of everything of the stars, right? And we are, right? Who we are, the components of we are in this universe, we are exactly what you see out in the night sky. We are that, right? So to understand that and maybe say, oh, maybe it is just who I already am. There's a great saying in Buddhism that it's kind of like the old saying where people say the forest through the trees. right? I can't see the forest through the trees. There's so many trees. Well, I am in the forest, but I can't see it because there's too many trees, right? In Buddhism, there's a saying that says, before enlightenment, plow the field. After enlightenment, plow the field, right? There's this idea that when I reach enlightenment, things are going to be so different. Really? Maybe they're not. Maybe you already have that understanding. Maybe that love, that joy, that bliss already is, but you're looking for the forest through the trees. Maybe you already are, right? To come to that experience. Oh, I am the ocean. Oh, that's just who I am. I already know it, right? I'm just suggesting that maybe the idea in your head of looking for that, or, oh, well, is this bliss? Is this happiness? Is this that experience? Maybe that's what's getting in the way, because you already are. And we as humans do that all the time, right? I wonder if I one just little thing I'd like to say is there's a lot of people, especially life coaches, that are out there talking about living your life purpose. I like to say to people, what if you already are living your life purpose? If the purpose of humanity is to be an expression of the divine, right? Then you've already fulfilled your life purpose. You are that. Stop trying to be anything else and just enjoy where you are.
I really love that. That's so powerful because you're right. We're always searching, we're always looking for something. Oh, even as spiritual people, we're searching for enlightenment, peace, bliss, whatever it is. That's really good advice.
Well, think about it really. Like, if the purpose of this, a spiritual theologian once said, the purpose of humanity is to be the expression of the divine, right? That humans are the divine coming into physical form to understand itself, right? I am you. I am everything. I am all I am. I am an individual expression. God is who I am. God, I are one. So if that is our purpose, then why do we have to go and, build great buildings? If you want to have fun, do it. But why do we have to go and, create these legacies or leave something behind, or, all that type of stuff? I'm not a good enough person just being who I am. Well, that goes against the fundamentals of spiritual teachings. Who you are is absolutely enough as you are. You are a very unique expression of the divine as you. And so just keep being you.
And if my viewers wanted to reach out to you, if they wanted to uh, hire you for some therapy, or if they have questions, how can they find you?
Sure. So I have a fantastic website. It's convergencehealing.com. So www.convergence, Convergence Healing. That's also the title of my first book that was published with Simon & Schuster. I have it right here. I'll just put up the cover so people can recognize it. That's Convergence Healing. It's the name of my brand. My second book, Billy and the Anxiety Monster, is out right now. It's a way of working through anxiety with love. And you can find me on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and Google and Yelp and Goodreads and Amazon, all kinds of places.
Just about anywhere. If you want to find you, you're going to be able to find you. And are your
Exactly.
books available on your website?
They are. The books are available on the website. They're available through Barnes and Nobles and Amazon. My first book is also an audiobook. So if they want to get it on Audible, they can listen to it. And it's just it's getting they're both the books I've been getting a lot of traction, and I've been going around speaking in many different places about anxiety lately because it's a big deal and we need to heal.
Oh, anxiety has taken over the world, especially since COVID, the past 3, 4 years. It's a different world we live in right now. So you're doing good
Yeah.
work. And
Well, thank you.
well, thank you. And do you have any last words of wisdom for my viewers?
Sure. When it comes to healing, I always ask people instead of pushing away their pain, again, whether it's mental pain, physical pain, or spiritual pain, instead of pushing away their pain, instead of making it wrong and bad or drugging it or trying to avoid it or drink it away, I'm hoping you'll sit down after hearing this and just take a moment to actually love it. It's a part of you that's suffering. It doesn't need to be bullied. It doesn't need to be made wrong. It doesn't need to be cut out and thrown away. It's suffering. And what it needs is your love.
Beautiful. Thank you, Peter, for being my guest. It's been a pleasure, and I've enjoyed talking to you today.
Lovely to be with you, Tia. Thanks so much.
Thank you for being here. I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you being here and supporting my channel. If you haven't already subscribed, please consider subscribing if you enjoy near-death experiences and other spiritually transformative stories. It helps the algorithm know that this information is useful and push it out to more people. And that's the goal, to get as many people to know that we are eternal spiritual beings and that we never die. Our bodies might die, but our essence will never die. And I want people to live with less fear. Let's all spread the word. Like, comment, subscribe, share, hit that little notification bell so you get all the notifications when my videos post. Thank you for all of your support. I'm sending love to you.